There are moments in WWE history that don't announce themselves with fireworks or fanfare. They slither in, silent, deadly, and by the time you realize what's happening, it's already too late. Today we enter the mind of the most dangerous man WWE has ever created. Not built, created. Because Randy Orton didn't just become a villain. He became the standard by which all villains are measured. 22 years old, most people are figuring out how to do their laundry. Randy Orton was figuring out how to end legends. While others screamed for attention, Orton discovered something more powerful than volume: presence. The kind that makes a room go quiet not because you demanded it, but because they're afraid of what you might do next. Today, we analyze 5 quotes that don't just define Randy Orton's career, they reveal the architecture of his soul. These aren't just words, they're confessions. And confessions, they always tell the truth. Quote 1. I'm not the most talented, I'm the most dangerous. Picture this, you're 29 years old. You've already held the world championship multiple times. You've killed legends, you've been handed everything, and you're still hungry. Not for titles, not for cheers, for something darker. This quote came during Orton's most psychologically complex period. He'd just punted the boss, kissed his daughter, RKO'd his son. And through it all he wore that smile, not of joy, but of understanding. He'd figured out the game within the game. But here's what Orton really meant. I don't need to be the best wrestler. I don't need to be the most athletic. I just need to be the one you can't predict, the one you can't control, the one who lives in your nightmares. This wasn't arrogance talking. This was strategy. Orton had studied the landscape and realized something profound. In a world full of superheroes, the most memorable character is always the one who makes you question if you're safe. And he was right. Years later, when WWE needed someone to carry the company through dark times, they didn't call the most talented. They called the most dangerous. That quote became his blueprint. Every feud after that, every storyline, every championship run, it all came back to this moment of self-awareness. Randy Orton didn't just accept who he was, he weaponized it. Quote 2. The only thing I love more than hurting people is hearing them beg me to stop. There's a moment in every villain's evolution where they cross a line they can never uncross. For Orton, it wasn't about winning anymore. It was about breaking. Watch his matches from this period. He doesn't just hit moves, he savors them. This quote came during his most psychologically disturbing period. He'd pull at Jeff Hardy's ear holes, he'd target injured body parts with surgical precision, and that smile, it wasn't the smile of someone enjoying a performance. It was the smile of someone who'd found their true calling. What Orton was really saying was, I've found something pure in this business, something honest. Pain doesn't lie, fear doesn't perform. When I hurt you, when you beg me to stop, that's the only real moment in this entire show. This wasn't kayfabe anymore. This was Orton admitting he'd found a part of himself that genuinely enjoyed the power to inflict suffering. And in a business built on fake violence, that kind of honesty was terrifying. But here's the twisted part. It worked. The more genuinely cruel Orton became, the more interesting he was to watch. Audiences didn't just boo him. They were attracted by him. Because he'd tapped into something important, something we all recognize but rarely acknowledge. That quote became his signature. Not just as a character trait, but as a philosophy. Randy Orton didn't just play a sadist, he became the blueprint for how psychological warfare should be conducted in professional wrestling. Quote 3, you respect me because you fear me. By the time Orton spoke these words, he'd already killed legends. He'd already proven he could hang with the best. But he'd also discovered something more valuable than admiration: control. This wasn't about being liked, this was about being inevitable. Watch how people reacted to Orton during this period. Not just his opponents, everyone. Referees, announcers, even other wrestlers watching from the back. There was a palpable tension whenever he appeared, not because he was going to put on a great match, because he was going to do something unpredictable. What Orton understood, what this quote really means, is that respect built on fear is the most honest kind of respect. When someone admires you, they might change their mind. When someone fears you, they never forget you. He wasn't talking about respect in the traditional sense. He was talking about acknowledgement, the kind of acknowledgement that comes from knowing someone has the power to destroy you and choosing not to, today. And that's exactly what happened. Orton's career became a masterclass in psychological dominance. He didn't need to be the strongest, the fastest, or the most athletic. He just needed to be the one everyone knew could strike at any moment. That quote became his legacy. When wrestlers talk about Randy Orton today, they don't talk about his moveset. They talk about his presence. The way he could control a room without saying a word. The way he could make you feel like prey just by existing. Quote 4. The RKO isn't just a move, it's a message. By 2014, something magical happened. Randy Orton's finishing move transcended wrestling. It became a meme, a cultural phenomenon. But Orton, being Orton, understood something the internet didn't. This wasn't just about entertainment. This was about messaging. Watch his RKOs. They're not just wrestling moves, they're statements. Each one saying, I can reach you anywhere. I can strike at any time. You are never safe. That's not wrestling psychology. That's predator psychology. What Orton realized was that the RKO had become more than his finisher. It had become his identity. Every time he hit it, he wasn't just ending a match, he was reinforcing a message that had been building for over a decade. I am the thing that happens when you least expect it. This quote revealed Orton's understanding of his own mythology. He wasn't just a wrestler anymore. He was a force of nature, and forces of nature don't negotiate. They don't explain. They simply occur. That quote became prophecy. The RKO didn't just become WWE's most recognizable finishing move, it became a symbol of inevitability. When wrestlers face Orton now, they're not just facing a man, they're facing the accumulated weight of every RKO that came before. And Orton knows it. Watch his face when he hits an RKO now. There's no celebration, no emotion, just satisfaction. The satisfaction of delivering a message that's been 20 years in the making. Quote 5. I don't need to talk about being the best, because I already know I am. This is where Randy Orton's evolution reaches its peak. Not in violence, not in cruelty, in certainty. After 2 decades of proving himself, after ending legends and creating new ones, after becoming the standard by which all heels are measured, he finally reached the place every great performer dreams of. Watch how he carries himself now. There's no desperation, no need to prove anything. Just the quiet confidence of someone who's already won the only game that matters, legacy. This quote isn't arrogance, it's peace. Randy Orton has spent 20 years asking the question, what does it mean to be truly great? And finally he found his answer. It doesn't mean being the most popular. It doesn't mean being the most athletic. It means being undeniable. He's not talking about championships or accolades. He's talking about the kind of greatness that doesn't need validation, because it's already written in stone. And that's where Randy Orton exists now. Not as a wrestler trying to prove himself. Not as a villain trying to get heat. As a monument. A living reminder of what happens when talent meets opportunity, meets the willingness to become something genuinely dangerous. That quote became his final form. Randy Orton doesn't need our approval anymore. He doesn't need our cheers or our boos. He just needs to exist. And in existing, he reminds us all what true greatness looks like. Randy Orton's legacy wasn't built on catchphrases or merchandise sales. It was built on understanding. Understanding that the most memorable characters aren't the ones who scream the loudest. They're the ones who make you listen when they whisper. These 5 quotes define a philosophy. The philosophy of the predator. The philosophy of the inevitable. The philosophy of the man who realized that sometimes the greatest victory isn't winning the match. It's making sure your opponent never forgets they faced you. Randy Orton didn't just become a legend. He became the thing that legends have nightmares about. And in a business built on larger-than-life characters, that might be the most honest thing of all. So tell me, whose mind do you want me to analyze next? Which wrestler's words have been living in your head? Drop a comment below, but choose carefully. Because once we start digging into someone's psychology, we might find things they never meant to reveal. And hit that subscribe button. Or don't. Just remember, in Randy Orton's world the choice was never really yours anyway.